24 hours after it launched on March 8th of 2016, Ubisoft announced that its newest third-person open-world shooter, The Division, had sold more copies in its first day than any other game in the company's history. Players expected big things from The Division, not only because the game had been hyped all year long prior to its release, but also because the open beta gave players a tease of the world and left us wanting more. Much more. But did we get it? Today, we will analyze the performance of The Division by looking at its story, player count trends, and financial performance to see if it truly did fail as a AAA title. The Division broke the industry record for the biggest first-week launch of a new game franchise, generating $330 million globally. Not only that, but The Division also had the highest Week 1 sales for a new IP, breaking the record held previous by Destiny, in addition to being the top retail seller in its release month. It was also the #1 seller in Japan with sales figures of 80,000 in its first week. So you could say people were pretty excited for this game, especially when they got some early time with the beta. The Division showed great promise with its beta. Many of us were excited to continue the journey through the snowy urban metropolis of New York City. The gunplay was really fun outside the bullet spongy enemies. The broken Manhattan setting had so much potential to tell a really personal, emotional story of the smallpox epidemic that spread through its city, and the Dark Zone was a chilling foundation for some anxiety-filled PvP gameplay. The concept was amazing. It wasn't perfect, but if the beta was a small slice of what was to come, The Division was going to be something pretty special. But the reality was something much different. The freedom, the expansive world without limits, and the rich PvE gameplay that would sit next to the deadly Dark Zone never saw daylight. Exploring the winter wasteland of The Division was much less magical than we anticipated. Quests were repetitive, invisible walls were everywhere, and missions were so tightly cornered off that it made the world seem so much less exciting than it could have been. And worse, the loot system was designed so poorly. The process to get that gear through missions was tiresome in the first place, but it was only then did you realize that the gear was massively underwhelming. And the cherry on top, hackers ran rampant and eviscerated the Dark Zone, ruining the one true unique thing that The Division promised us. So we took to the PvE content, only to find that there was nothing compelling waiting for us. We purchased The Division believing in a vision set out for us by Ubisoft and the open beta, only to be greeted by a shell of a game only exciting in the early going, riddled with hackers and trainers, buggy netcode, glitches, and really no reason to continue playing. The Division's concurrent player trends are displayed on your screen now, and there's really not much to say. The Division peaked around 98,000 average players for one single day, March 12th, but then plummeted to 4,300 concurrent players by June 27th, the day before Ubisoft released the first DLC pack. A titanic drop that is unheard of in such a short amount of time. The survival came next, and while player counts saw a boom just for a few days, the concurrent player base once again fizzled away into practically nothing after January 1st. Looking at price drops for The Division is equally interesting. Right before the release of The Underground at the end of June, Ubisoft discounted the game for a short period of time down to $40, but then jacked it up to $60 a few days later. Obviously, Ubisoft wanted to ramp up its new player base during this time by offering this discount. They may have been better off keeping the price down lower because it ultimately hindered player growth. Now, leading up to the release of Survival, we saw 2 more price drops before its release, and then several more later on as Ubisoft desperately tried to hold on to its player base and grow its pockets at the same time. Looking at the data from our prior graph, we know that this was, ultimately, not very successful. We've seen a lot of new content come to The Division, mostly new areas and new gameplay modes, but no expansion of story, and I think a lot of people are lamenting this. In a surprising move, well, not so shocking if you consider the data, Ubisoft has announced that all Year 2 content for The Division will be absolutely free. So if you're still out there, Division player, the first expansion will introduce new loadout options and an event system that drives players to activities that feature modifiers and leaderboards and unique vanity items that will only be available through these features. Now sadly, we won't be getting anything more interesting than those features, most likely. The final expansion will lean towards being, and I quote from Julian Girardi, creative director at Massive Entertainment, more content focused, but new story missions won't necessarily be a part of the package. It's a very vague and political statement, full of nothing promises and broad strokes. But for the sake of those who stuck with the Division, it's free stuff, just not the kind of free content that may bring anyone back into the Division who has already abandoned the game. In my eyes, I think the Division is something of a wasted opportunity. For Ubisoft, although they did bank initial cash through pre-order sales and early adopters, they have most certainly failed to capitalize on the long-term potential of yet again another open-world game. Inadvertently, they may have also damaged their reputation as a provider for The Division 2, and I wouldn't be surprised if the wayward gamer becomes more cautious of faithfully walking in with open arms when Ubisoft gets around to releasing The Division 2. But really though, I wonder when people will stop pre-ordering Ubisoft open world games altogether. What do you guys think of The Division and its rocky road into its year 2 content stream? Share your comments below and also let me know what game you'd like to see featured in the next Did It Fail? Thanks for watching guys. If you enjoyed the video, by all means hit the thumbs up button and subscribe here for more of our future content, and have yourself a kick-ass day guys.